A night of terror. Russia's renewed assault. The date, May 26, 2025, brought a night of intense bombardment to Ukraine. Russia launched one of its most massive aerial assaults in many months. Multiple cities across the country were hit hard. These included the capital, Kyiv, as well as Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Odesa. The sheer scale of the attack was deeply alarming for citizens and observers alike. Reports indicated that over 80 cruise missiles were fired. In addition to these, more than 40 Iranian-made Shahed drones filled the dark skies. The clear intent behind this barrage appeared to be an attempt to overwhelm Ukraine's dedicated air defense systems. This offensive marked a significant and brutal escalation in the ongoing aerial warfare. The human cost of this ferocious assault was immediate and devastating. Across the nation, at least 47 people tragically lost their lives. Many dozens more sustained injuries of varying severity. These were not abstract statistics. They represented ordinary civilians caught in the violence. Families were suddenly and violently torn apart. Residential buildings, homes where people slept, bore the brunt of many of the missile and drone strikes. The attacks seemed almost indiscriminate in their targeting of densely populated urban areas. Overstretched emergency services valiantly struggled to reach all those affected by the blasts and collapsing structures through the night filled with sirens and the terrifying sound of explosions. Infrastructure essential for civilian life suffered immense and widespread damage. In Kyiv, Ukraine's capital city, a high-rise apartment block collapsed entirely. This catastrophic event was the result of a direct hit from a Russian projectile. At least 15 people perished in that single building, buried under the debris. Further east, hospitals in Kharkiv and Dnipro were quickly overwhelmed. They faced a massive and sudden influx of casualties, straining their resources to the breaking point. Educational institutions, including schools, also became targets and suffered significant structural damage. The destruction effectively crippled essential services in many affected areas, promising a long and arduous path to rebuilding. Ukraine's air defense systems worked tirelessly and courageously throughout the terrifying night. Official reports stated they managed to intercept a significant portion of the incoming Russian missiles and drones. However, the sheer volume of the coordinated Russian attack proved too great to counter completely. Many deadly projectiles still managed to penetrate Ukrainian airspace. These munitions caused widespread destruction and sowed chaos on the ground in numerous locations. It is crucial to note that this specific attack was not an isolated incident. It appeared to be part of a larger, escalating pattern of Russian aggression. Indeed, recent intelligence indicated Russia had hit Ukraine with 367 drones and missiles in another similarly massive barrage not long ago. Amidst the ruins, a glimmer of hope. Yet, on this very same dark day, May 26, 2025, a starkly different event unfolded, offering a fragile counterpoint. Far from the smoke and fire of the bombarded cities, a significant prisoner exchange took place. This was reportedly the largest such swap since the full-scale war began over 3 years prior. The exchange occurred near the Turkish border, a location often used for such sensitive diplomatic maneuvers. In total, over 400 prisoners of war were released and given their freedom. Ukraine joyfully welcomed back 225 of its people, soldiers, and some civilians. Simultaneously, Russia saw 200 of its own servicemen return home from Ukrainian captivity. This exchange offered a rare and much-needed moment of positive news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy quickly and publicly hailed the return of the nation's soldiers. He spoke with deep and palpable emotion about their hard-won release from enemy hands. These people are not just soldiers, he stated firmly, his voice resonating with pride. They are our strength and pride, he continued, powerfully emphasizing their immense value to the Ukrainian nation and its spirit. Many of those individuals freed had endured horrific conditions and prolonged captivity, some since the brutal and infamous siege of Mariupol back in 2022. For Ukraine, their safe return was celebrated as a profound moral victory and a testament to the country's unyielding efforts. President Zelenskyy's words perfectly captured the day's stark and unsettling duality. There was immense joy and relief for the returned prisoners. This, however, was painfully juxtaposed with the deep sorrow and anger over the night's deadly attacks. This was one of the darkest nights in recent memory, he admitted, acknowledging the scale of the suffering. He then drew the unavoidable and painful contrast. While we were working to bring our heroes home, Russia rained death upon our cities. The timing of these two major events, a brutal assault and a significant prisoner release, seemed almost cruelly orchestrated by Moscow. creating a confusing and emotionally charged atmosphere for Ukrainians. Russia's defense ministry also issued a statement confirming the prisoner exchange from their side. They formally acknowledged the return of their own servicemen. The ministry's official communication stated that the soldiers would receive all necessary medical attention upon their arrival back in Russia. They also promised comprehensive psychological support for those who had been held captive by Ukrainian forces. This official confirmation from Moscow was notably brief and to the point. It focused primarily on the logistical aspects of the soldiers' return and their subsequent care, carefully framing the event within the Russian narrative of the ongoing conflict and its humanitarian gestures. Deciphering Moscow's gambit power and diplomacy. This simultaneous display of extreme brutality and apparent conciliation sends profoundly complex and contradictory signals to Ukraine and the world. What strategic objectives is Russia attempting to achieve with such a jarring dual strategy on the very same day? Political analysts and international relations experts quickly began to offer their interpretations of Moscow's actions. Professor Nina Khrushcheva, a respected expert in international affairs, described it in plain terms. She characterized the Kremlin's approach as classic hybrid warfare messaging, a tactic frequently employed by Moscow. This approach is deliberately designed to confuse adversaries and to project multiple, often conflicting narratives simultaneously, making a clear response more difficult. The message of raw military dominance projected by Russia is unmistakable and intentionally brutal. The massive missile and drone assault serves as a terrifying demonstration of force. It starkly reminds everyone of Russia's continued capacity for widespread destruction across Ukraine. It also chillingly highlights Moscow's apparent willingness to target civilian areas and critical infrastructure, despite international laws and condemnation. This relentless pressure causes immense human suffering and significantly strains Ukraine's already stretched resources. The attacks are clearly designed to intimidate the Ukrainian population. They also seek to pressure Ukraine's leadership into making concessions at the negotiating table, a clear projection of hard, coercive power. Conversely, the agreement to and execution of the large-scale prisoner exchange projects an image of diplomatic engagement or reasonableness. By participating in the largest prisoner swap of the war to date, Russia might be attempting to appear as a state open to negotiation, albeit strictly on its own terms. This move could also be strategically aimed at specific international audiences. Perhaps Moscow seeks to gain favor or understanding with neutral countries that have been hesitant to fully condemn its actions. Or, it could be a calculated effort intended to create divisions and uncertainty among Ukraine's vital Western allies, complicating their united front. This represents a softer yet still highly strategic form of influence. This calculated dual approach, combining overt aggression with gestures of de-escalation, ultimately aims to create deep and pervasive uncertainty. It significantly complicates the international community's response to Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. How should world leaders and organizations react when faced with such profoundly contradictory signals from the Kremlin? This strategy makes it considerably harder for Ukraine and its international partners to formulate a clear, coherent, and effective counter-strategy. One moment, Russia acts as a brutal aggressor state, and the next, it positions itself as a potential partner in humanitarian efforts. This cultivated unpredictability can be a potent weapon in itself, designed to keep adversaries perpetually off balance and reactive. Global outcry and an uncertain path forward. The devastating Russian missile strikes on May 26 drew immediate and widespread international condemnation. Global organizations and numerous national governments swiftly voiced their outrage at the scale and nature of the attacks. The United Nations strongly denounced the bombardment, highlighting the severe risk to civilian lives. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, described the coordinated strikes as a serious escalation of hostilities. Many Western governments, including key allies of Ukraine, formally labeled the bombardment a clear and egregious violation of established international law. The deliberate targeting of civilians and essential non-military infrastructure was particularly and forcefully condemned by leaders and human rights groups worldwide. Specific world leaders also issued strong public statements in response to the attacks. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen minced no words, calling the Russian attacks barbaric. She firmly reaffirmed the European Union's unwavering commitment to supporting Ukraine's defense and sovereignty for as long as it takes. Across the Atlantic, U.S. President Donald Trump, who has recently signaled a renewed diplomatic engagement in the region, offered a somewhat more mixed public reaction. He termed the latest strikes a step backward for peace efforts. He urged both sides to maintain momentum toward a potential ceasefire, yet also voiced noticeable frustration with the actions and rhetoric of both Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy. Ukraine, despite the shock and horror of the renewed onslaught, continued to show remarkable resilience and national unity. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba clearly articulated the nation's defiant and unyielding stance in the face of aggression. "We will not let Russia dictate the terms of peace through terror," he declared with conviction. He also emphasized that every single Ukrainian brought home safely in the prisoner exchange represented a significant moral victory for the country. President Zelenskyy echoed this determined resolve. He passionately urged Ukraine's Western partners to significantly increase economic and military sanctions on Russia, stressing that only strong, unified, and sustained pressure could hope to deter further aggression. Meanwhile, the brutal, grinding reality of war continues unabated along a vast and contested front line. Fierce fighting persists daily, stretching over 620 miles. Russian military forces recently claimed new territorial advances in the northern Kursk region of Ukraine. They also reported making progress in the northeastern Sumy region, allegedly capturing several villages, including Marine and Lochnia. Further Russian advances were also noted by military observers near the strategic town of Vovchansk in the heavily contested Kharkiv region. These simultaneous events, the horrific aerial attacks, the hopeful prisoner exchange, and the relentless ground war, paint an incredibly grim and complex picture. The path to any form of lasting peace in Ukraine remains fraught with immense challenges and deep uncertainty.